development with any project. And when you have high rises, such as are included with this project, it becomes that much more important to be sure they're addressed properly. The Extell team has spent considerable time working with the county's fire department to design this project that meets the county standards for fire access. As you can see on this map, every building has direct access for fire apparatus. There's also additional access for ambulance service. The Extell team will continue to work with the county fire department to be sure that as each building comes in, it meets the requirements that are in place for fire and life safety issues. As Mr. Smith talked about in his analysis, that a visual study was done for this project. Doug identified some areas that are of concern, and we will continue to work with the county team to be sure that all visual issues are properly addressed. On-site parking, critical element for any project. As has been stated previously, this has been designed as a walkable community. And that's key because the intent is when guests and residents arrive, they can park their cars and walk to wherever they need to go. No place within the village is more than 1,200 feet away. And so the goal is they can park their cars and move forward. A parking analysis was done for this project as is required by your code. The study concluded that 3,471 parking spaces are needed. That includes the day skier parking as well as the 200 parking spaces in the conference center that will be available for public use. It's important to note that each building will have its own parking to meet the demands generated by that building. Modern income employee housing. This is a very important issue to your county. Extell was present for your August 15th meeting to hear the concerns that your council has and some of the solutions that you're looking at for going forward. As was obvious at your August 15th meeting, addressing the issue is multi-pronged. It's not a one-size-fits-all solution. And with that, Extell is proposing to have multiple solutions for moving forward with the moderate income housing. Currently, we're looking at the payment of an endowment that can be used for down payment assistance programs, as well as the construction of on-site employee and affordable housing. It's one thing to pay an in lieu fee. To actually get those units constructed on site will be important for your county, and that's the commitment that Extell is moving forward with. As you've heard, this project has been designed to not only meet the county's requirements, but to exceed those kind of requirements. And Extell believes it has gone that extra step to create a project that implements your council's vision for what should happen up on the Mayflower property. In conclusion, the BLX Mayflower team requests that your council approve the master plan, including the constraints analysis and density determination, along with the conditions of approval as modified by the JSPA Planning Commission. As Kurt mentioned, the Extell team is available to respond to any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions right now for anyone on the Extell team?
One. You indicated there's over 800 acres of open space, open land. What kind of usage are you going to allow on that? Or are you going to put any conservation easements on it?
I think the plan right now is 637.
637.
But that's a round number that we refine after we do final development plans. And so that does include ski runs and includes ski improvements. It also includes the trails that you see backcountry and otherwise. But those were all outside of the development bubble. So for example, if you look at the master plan and the areas where you have the single-family housing, most of those lots are going to be undeveloped. We're not calling any of that open space, okay? And so there weren't a lot of, the recreation plan wasn't, or sorry, the recreation facility wasn't shown within open space, but I even might consider that but it wasn't counted. And so that's kind of a very big general number that does include everything outside of anything that was in development. So the skier plaza, not counted as open space right now, but I think we could easily look at some of those and add those in if those are of interest to you.
So are you considering any kind of easement, conservation easement on the ski runs?
That may make sense in the future. Gary Barnett, our owner, is fond of conservation easements when they are done appropriately, and so that's a possibility. But we have to work with more, multiple partners and make sure that's the right thing for that area.
So some of this could be developed further down the road.
The areas that are shown, so unless we came back with a master plan amendment, except for the areas that, the areas that are shown as development land use bubbles, I would say no. We would have to come back and ask for a land use amendment for areas that are shown as open space. And I believe your council and our council would agree with that. That's what we're asking for, is just the areas that are shown as development.
Anything else before we open up for public comment?
In August, you came before the water board with a total of 1,970 equipment ERUs. Does that include commercial and the workforce housing and everything that we'll be using?
If you add
Yes,
that,
I'm the one.
if you add that 1024 and the 710, it only comes to 734, so that 1910's got to be counted somewhere else.
Yeah, so, and maybe Ron can speak to this, but I can pull up the feasibility letter if you like, but we utilized all of the density that we're asking for, except for snowmaking, within our request and for that updated water and sewer letter. And we went multiple times and double checked, triple checked that all of the ask was included in that feasibility.
Okay, so that includes all the commercial uses as well as the workforce housing.
Workforce housing, the 250,000 square feet, the 68,000 square feet of the rec center, and all of the, so the 1470 residential. So every single thing that was in that chart was counted in and put in the 50.
Including the Mida Hotel and residential.
Well, because we also need water for Mida Hotel. So that was in there as well.
Outside of this jurisdiction, but it was included in the feasibility. A lot of the sewer, water, and other studies such as traffic considered the military recreation facility.
As well, traffic. So let me go back to, if you don't have it in front of you, the numbers there. So those were the numbers used to generate feasibility.
Okay. Anything further before we open up? All right.
Yes.
Okay, we will now move to the public hearing portion of this item. Anyone wishing to make, and we'll open up public hearing now. So anyone wishing to make public comment on this item, please come forward, state your name for the record in the microphone so we've got it, and go from there. Please come on up, Mr.
I prefer Bob to speak first. Bob is the expert in this area. Would you accept that invitation? I will.
If he doesn't want to.
There's no deal. But I would like to
Not all
say
Bobs
something.
at once. Anyway, anyone wishing to make comment, please come on up and do so now.
Peer pressure.
It's always good to see you.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, and sorry you got the number 2 Bob instead. So thanks for the opportunity to comment. Number 1, we have worked extensively with the Extell team, and we were also participated in the Planning Commission meeting last week. Made pretty much the same comments I'd like to talk about tonight. First and foremost is that as a ski area operator our focus is maybe slightly different than the granular focus that Planning Commission needs to look at and that you need to look at. So when we look at this plan as a ski area operator, as I said, our focus may be slightly different. And to start out with, we do feel like the requested density for this project in total is more than appropriate for the project. In order for a successful four-season village to have vibrancy, to have excitement, to have visitation, there really needs to be a sense of critical mass there. And we've thought about that for a long time, ever since the gondola went in at the bottom of Deer Crest. We need to have some critical mass down there. We do think that the overall proposed density for this project is appropriate for the project. Now, having said that, I'm going to ask the group maybe, can you pull up the one with the road out? I think it was maybe Kurt's 7th or 8th. Yeah. Slide.
All of the upper.
Yeah, that one's okay. So, sure. I'll take any kind of help I get. So this part right here, if you were to look at this from a ski area standpoint, and think about a skier coming down this run, so under the bridge, and then they come down this ski run and they go under that bridge. You see another bridge, another bridge, another bridge, another bridge, and another bridge. And when I look at that and I think about making snow on there, it ain't gonna happen. This project is already challenged in elevation and with exposure and aspect. But between working with the Extell team and working with snow SE groups, what they call them, we do fully support the ski plan. That road, like from right there, is problematic would be an understatement. And so what we would like to ask, and this is where we fully understand, this is where the difference in focus comes from. You obviously have to look at county plans, county codes, design guidelines, and all that kind of stuff. I'm not looking at that stuff, full disclosure. So what I'm looking at is from a world-class ski experience, that's not it. And what I would like to ask is if there is some way, and I'm not a planner, and you got a bunch of them right here, and really good ones too. But if there's a way to take that density that's up here and put it down at the bottom, so that the village can see even more vibrancy and more critical mass, and not impact the world-class ski experience, which the ski runs were designed to accomplish. But the roads definitely inhibit that. And snowmaking is just one of them. You think about snow removal. Somebody's got to plow those roads. Doesn't take an Einstein to figure out when the plow goes across there. That snow is most likely going to end up on the ski run, and it's going to have salt, cinders, all that kind of stuff in it. Not necessarily a world-class ski experience. So that's kind of how we look at that portion of the plan. Everything down here, I'm going to sign me up, I got to say. So it's about as cool as it gets.
You work with them. Have you talked about this directly with them as you work?
Yes, we have. And that's what the challenge is. I think, the design team, Extell overall, they're looking at design codes and county codes. And, as has been talked about here, and we have no reason to dispute that, this plan does adhere to the county codes. I'm just here saying that if the desire is to have a world-class ski experience, that's not it. So I don't know how that works. what kind of latitude you have or what kind of latitude planning commission has. You know, the input that Deer Valley has provided to the Extell team has been graciously received and fully understood.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Can I just address that real briefly?
Sure.
You do have, you want me to, I'll sit down. Whatever you want. Stand by me.
I usually do that.
I didn't. What's been presented is exactly right. The plan as presented completely complies with the county code, and that was important to us to be able to facilitate the approval. The desire is to get us approved as fast as possible, and we get through the process, and the density can be secure. There's issues that have been presented to us that the developer needs to make sure his financing is secure, and he needs this approved to do that. So we've been trying everything we could do to facilitate that. We do have a process, and we can address this type of an issue. And we can do it in this zone, in the mountain zone, by the use of an alternative transportation plan. And, when we get to the proposed amendment to the MOU with MIDA, we do address it in that proposal, but that is part of our code currently. And so the applicant can work with this, come up with an alternate plan that could essentially eliminate this road, and we could eliminate it. This part here is the applicant's issue to deal with as far as the housing. I mean, that's not the county's not saying you can or can't. I mean, it complies with the code currently. And even if we did a transportation plan, could comply with the code, but that's the applicant's issue. But this road here, certainly we can address that through an alternative transportation plan of removing that road. And the challenge that we have is right now, to do that, we have to go through that process. Now, we can do it quickly, but we couldn't get it done before this. So that was what was facilitating trying to get this approved so that they could progress. So that's our thinking on it. And hopefully we can resolve those issues. So I think we all agree we want the best facility possible. But that is in progress. That is a form of what we're presenting later on in the meeting with our amendment, is that we would use that process to address this issue.
Well, and that specific process has not been a particular part of our discussion with Extell. Like I said, I'm not well versed enough to look at know the tools that could be used to address that.
We actually have the tools. We have used the tools. We've done developments in Strawberry using this very tool and done this very thing. So, but we have to go through that process, and this. Right now, what we're doing isn't part of that, so we just need a step first.
Thank you. Any further public comment, please come forward now.
Sorry.
Move around my leg.
I know.
I'm Jay Harden. Thanks for the opportunity to speak. Two things. One, I wanted to bring up with my experience at Deer Cross with roads, mixing with ski trails. Bob's exactly right. It's a challenge, and you should avoid it as much as possible. The other thing I want to talk about is I was very impressed with Brooks' stacked loop trail system. The only thing I would maybe advise is if we could keep it very flexible, because when you actually get out and start laying out trails, you run into terrain problems with rocky ridges and things like that. So if you could leave corridors instead of blocking into a real specific trail. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Any further comment?
Here I am again, Mike Kozakowski. I live right there. Boy, it's been a long journey. I've been there since just before you came in, Steve. So it's been, what, 5 years now? So we're so happy that we're at this point.
Was that written comment to add?
Yes, that's written comment, and there's a thumb drive in there. By the way, you have all received from my wife, Kit, our comments. So
It's in the packet.
yes, It's in the packet. Okay, that's good. She is unable to attend tonight. Besides Sunday, Wednesday is a religious observant night for her, so she could not attend tonight. We'd like to make ourselves available. We have always offered to be available to respond to any questions that you have on our submissions. We've been strong supporters. We moved where we did because of Deer Valley and people like Bob and like Don, who's been associated with Deer Valley for some time. So we look forward to that. All of our issues involve administrative issues and legal issues as far as how the county has been acting. So we have nothing substantive to add to the comments that were made on this great presentation that this village is going to see. So thank you.
Thank you. Any further public comment? Okay. Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Come back to the council for action for additional comment or discussion.
I think a few comments. There's been a lot of effort and a lot of work put into this. Everybody's part. I think it's going to be a beautiful project and a wonderful asset to our county. Appreciate all the efforts that have gone into this. I'm ready to make a motion whenever we're done with county comments.
Okay. Anything from the rest of the council? Any comments, additions, concerns? Remember, we've got the additional item that we'll address after this, after we take care of this item on the earl.
Can I just make one comment on behalf of the applicant?
Please.
Robert McConnell, and we're legal counsel for the Extell team. And it relates to Mike's comment, and I think that that's a helpful solution. I would just, so you're referring to 16.09.17 access requirements in the mountain zone, which allows the alternative approved transportation plan. And it also provides that if you have 2 access points connect to a county road, which has been historically maintained year-round, will meet the requirements of this section, which is a provision that correlates a little bit with the 16.27.31 provision D, which requires the 2 access points, and is the provision that indicates if there's one is a dead end, then it needs to be extended. And it's written as if it's a mandatory provision. I like the idea of going through the alternative transportation plan, but I think we would also need to amend D to accommodate, put in an exception where an alternative transportation plan has been approved. And so I just wanted to mention that in case you wanted to include that in the motion.
Thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Peterson?
Well, this comes to us as a recommendation from the J-Spot Planning Commission along with GDA Engineering and AGEC with the findings and conditions that they've come up with. This is the first step, the master plan, to a few other steps that are still in the process of preliminary and final approvals, which the ELX team is well aware of the findings and conditions and are anxious to move forward on this. So I make the recommendation that we approve master plan and the master plan amendment.
The motion. I think you said recommendation. Oh, I think you meant motion, correct?
Yeah.
Make the motion.
Make the motion to approve.
I just want to make sure we got it right. I want to make sure we got it right. I'm sure Rick had you covered there.
The way it's listed on the...
I'm not done yet.
If we quit correcting him, he'd have it just right. Sorry, Mr. Peterson. Sorry.
Along with the density determination, do we set that at 1,970 maximum at this time?
I think as outlined would cover it probably.
Okay. Along with the constraint analysis and the findings and conditions that have been brought up through the J-Spot Planning Commission and the engineers.
Second. Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Peterson, second by Mr. Good. Any further discussion? We'll vote. Mr. Nelson? Yes.
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 Yes. Yes.
Motion carries unanimously.